Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the London Borough of Newham Overview and Scrutiny Committee. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so welcome to everyone viewing online. Members who have joined us remotely will not be able to vote, and your attendance will not be officially recorded. However, it will be reflected in the minutes. Can everyone viewing remotely hear me? Concerning meeting etiquette, please direct all questions via myself. For the benefit of members of the public and the press, can I ask that all attendees give their names and role when they're speaking for the first time? May I also remind members and officers to speak up clearly in the chamber so that the clerk and the public can hear you. Meeting of the London Borough of Newham Overview and Scrutiny Committee is now called to order. This meeting this evening would be in two parts. There is a call-in, and I will be dealing with the call-in first, and then we'll be dealing with the Review and Scrutiny meeting in its own right in the second half of this meeting, upon the conclusion of the call-in. Is that agreed? Sure. Apologies for absence. I have before me Councillor Lockmany Shaw, Joshua Garfield, and Ellen Kemp and Paul Leslie. And those are the last two are co-opted members who send their apologies. Are there any other apologies?
Not that I'm aware of, Chair.
Yeah. Do we agree to note those apologies? Accept. Okay. Thank you. Declaration of interest. Are there any members wishing to declare any interest? The clerk will note that no member wishes to declare any interest. That takes me directly into the call-in, and the call-in is the Juniper Ventures. This is a key officer decision, a decision that was made on the 15th of April, 2025. Juniper Ventures Limited is a company owned by Newham Council. Juniper Ventures also has subsidiary companies, Juniper Pursuit Limited and NASPM Limited. Collectively, they are referred to as Juniper, as they are referred to as the company or as Juniper Group in this document, established 7 years ago from the externalization of Newham catering and cleaning services. The companies specialize in the delivery of education catering and education and the public building cleaning service primarily in the borough of Newham, with additional work in corporate catering, hospitality, and health and safety advisory services. Juniper Group of companies employ 632 across 788 posts and has turnover of 23.8 million per year, split between cleaning and catering. 82% of turnover is in school, with a small amount of work in public building and other work on health and safety. That is by way of introduction. For this In terms of witnesses, I have before me executive members, Siri Wills and Neil Wilson. I also have, in terms of officers, Jason and Andy.
And some more.
Pardon?
You'll need to unlock your iPad first.
I'm sorry for that interruption. You were saying some.
There's some other colleagues as well.
Okay, so
Item.
okay, so what I would do is give them a chance to introduce themselves so that we archivists can have a record of who's here and in what capacity. So before I go on to do that, I would then introduce myself, which I'm Anthony McCalmont, Chair of Review and Scrutiny Committee and member for Albert, and
Councillor Susan Masters, Chair of Adults and Health Scrutiny, and I represent East Ham South Ward. Councillor Colin Lee Parkway, South.
Councillor Mahmood Mirza, polling of the opposition Newham Council.
That's the Hudson Ward, then Ward.
Councillor Wintershall, Kennington North.
and Councillor Paul.
Councillor Paul, Stratford Ward.
And over to yourselves.
Montez Bacon, Head of Law.
Rachel McCoy, Director of Law and Governance, Action Officer.
Jason Srillex, Corporate Director of Adults and Health.
Andy Gold, Head of Food Strategy.
Gordon McFarlane, Director of HR and OD.
Councillor Neil Wilson, Health and Adult Social Care Cabinet Lead.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz, Cabinet Lead for Children Services and Education.
Mike Jones, Head of Finance for Adults and Health. And Conrad Hall, Corporate Director of Resources.
Artemis Cassie, Head of Scrutiny and Governance at Newham.
Aaron Sagan, Scrutiny Officer.
Yeah, that's by way of introduction.
Chair. Ofiali.
I'm sorry, Zofika, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for not being there. Councillor Zulfikar Ali, Cabinet Lead for Finance and Resources. Thank you.
Okay. Right, I continue. The purpose of this item is to consider a call-in of a key officer officer key decision made on the 15th of April 2025. This item was called in for consideration by Overview and Scrutiny Committee in accordance with the provision of Rule 15 of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee Procedural Rule in Part 4 of the Council's Constitution. Options for the committee. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee may review officer's key decision and thereafter may either 1, take no further action, or 2, refer it back to the decision maker for reconsideration, setting out in writing the nature of its concern. Order of the meeting. This meeting, the order of this meeting is in 5 parts. The first is to hear the reasons from the call-in, and that would be led by the members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The second is to have a brief response from the executive team. Third, we would be going into question and answering session. The fourth part would be members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee would deliberate on the responses that we have heard. And the fifth, we will be deciding on whether to uphold the call-in, and if so, we come up with a series of recommendations. So, at this juncture, I would hand over to my colleagues who would give a brief description and make brief comments as to why this decision has been called in. Councillor Hudson.
One of the reasons for the rationale is the creation of a two-class workforce and impact on the council policy. And does the decision meet Newham Council's commitment
to eliminate discrimination in a predominantly female workforce.
Chair, if I may, for my benefit, have you dealt with the exempt materials and whether members have questions about exempt materials?
I would take that later.
Okay,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Yes. To continue? Yes, do. Bear with me. The summary. Long-term financial viability and risk scenario. What information was used and considered in making the decision to ensure long-term financial viability when creating a two-class work by the erosion of annual leave and sick pay conditions of a predominantly female and Newham resident? What modelling has been done and what assumptions have been made? C, equal pay claims. What consideration has been given to the potential exposure of financial and future risk as a result of a reduction of annual leave and sickness term of conditions of Juniper bench staff? That's it. Okay. Any other member? Okay, I would just follow on from Councillor Lester Hudson in terms of our concern. Councillor Hudson has mentioned the two classes of workers, but this has the potential to create. We also have seen that in similar situation, Birmingham, who is not too far from us, end up being having to refer to Section 114 notice as a result of the legal the financial implication as a result of the cost. I must say, suggesting that that would happen to us, but the fact is, it was as a result of a two-class workforce that led to that consequence. We also are aware that some years ago, Newham Council decided to benchmark the then Juniper with their male colleagues. And I said male colleagues because Juniper Ventures is primarily, or the majority of the workforce are female. And I said that on the back of what I mentioned about Birmingham. So we do need to be mindful of. And what legal advice we're concerned about that, what legal advice was given, the risk that was being told, and what consideration was given to the risk, and whether we have the appetite to be subjected or exposed to those risks should it arises. And those are some of our concerns regarding this officer's decision, and also the role that members played in it. So a combination of all of those give rise to concerns by overviewing scrutiny committee, and therefore we are here discussing this calling. Does any other member want to add to that? Pretty comprehensive summary.
I do, Chair.
There he does.
Councillor Paul?
Chair.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Chair. It's just really a question to add context. Thank you. In March 2023, the council converted just over £4 million of working capital into shares. There was no mention of any financial issues or problems in that cabinet report. Can someone please explain what changed over the past 2 years? There was no mention in that report in 2023 of the financial conditions which laid out by officers and lead members. So just for context, what changed in the past 2 years, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Paul. So that's the end of our submissions and our reasons for calling this item in. I will now, is there any questions for us by the executive? Any comments? No? Okay. Now I would move over to the executive, and now is your turn to present your case to us. I would allow about 10 minutes to that. Would that be collectively 10 minutes? Is that enough? Okay? Yeah. Yeah.
I think we may need to move into close.
Okay. Right. Now, most of this, the green paper. The reason I haven't moved yet into closed session, because we are not getting into the actual question and answering session. We just setting out to the case. And for the members of the public, they need to hear the case set out. There's some aspect of it that will be dealt in closed session. When that time comes, I'm going to move into closed session. To move into closed session now, without the case being set out, members of the public will know why we are here. Right.
That's fine, just as long as, yeah, it just stays.
Yeah, I am aware of it, and I move into closed session at the appropriate time. Thank you. Okay. Who's going to present for us?
Cabinet members.
Yeah.
We're going to set it, bit of a background to this, because I think it's really important. So about 18 months, 2 years ago, the GMB union went to Juniper because they were concerned about maybe loss of contracts and what that would actually mean for Juniper and its workforce. There were conversations then. I don't know how far they went, but certainly it was raised about 18 months, 2 years ago. Neil and I became involved September last year, where we were alerted to the fact that they were looking at changing terms and conditions. Neil and I were both very clear that this was not something that we necessarily wanted, the path we wanted to go down, and that actually the conversations needed to be had with the unions. There are 3 unions have members in Juniper, GMB, Unite and Unison. We were very clear that negotiation with the unions and with the workforce had to take place, that we were not prepared to do anything unless there was agreement with the unions and the workforce. That we understand was going along at pace, with regular meetings with the workforce and the 3 unions. And then was it earlier this year? All of a sudden, the regional officers decided that they needed to get involved. And we had meetings with 3 regional officers. And negotiations were ongoing from then, and have today is a position that was agreed by all 3 unions at regional officer level and all the workforce. Just a little bit of background.
Yeah.
Probably want to add something to that. No.
Just to say that throughout those negotiations, we made it very clear as cabinet leads that we were not talking about a directly employed workforce, but we wanted things to be done in the right way that would not only talk about viability, a very real aspect, as equally important to us as the commitment to the London living wage and the viability of a school meal service. We are in a situation where there's only 4 local authorities out of 32 in the London area who have a directly workforce.
Yeah, and Waltham Forest have just lost theirs this last week. Yeah, that's all from us at the moment.
Okay, does that include yourself too, Jason, or do you want to make any comments?
Hand over to Gordon to speak about the first set of the questions.
Okay, so most of this is in the green paper, so anything you speak about now cannot be in the green paper until I move into that. So you're not going to be saying anything regarding these papers, the green.
Okay, I'll try and keep it general.
General, and then in the next few minutes, I move into closed session. I just need to give members of the public a flavour of why we are here. Yes.
Yeah. So I think broadly around two-tier workforce, we'll certainly understand the concerns about two-tier workforce.
Can you speak up a bit?
Yeah, sure. Understand the concerns about two-tier workforce. We're dealing with separate organisations as a starting point, and certainly, you know, within the council where sorry, there's a question.
No, I'll just in case you did, I won't have a question.
Okay. Good. There's certainly within the council where the question is leading, there is certainly no two-tier workforce within the organisation, within the council. And I think a position has been backed up by detailed quality impact assessment. And clearly there's a backdrop of the Juniper financials as well, in terms of the business case as to why this had to be done. So I think probably obviously keep it that brief in terms of keeping it general.
Okay.
We can get into more specifics.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, could I add that Juniper's competitors would be pleased to hear anything they can? It really, I think, you know, Montage, you would say this, the stuff we are talking about really is valuable to us as a council and as a competitive business, and we'll get to some of that, I think, in the exempt session, just how much so, but it's really worth emphasising. And that,
Could you speak up?
I'm so sorry. I thought these mics were working better. I think this stuff really is of great commercial value, actually. It's not a world we deal with all the time in the council, but actually some of the stuff we're talking about here is incredibly interesting and sensitive to the competitors. So yeah, it's competitors. So worth sort of, and I think in the exempt session, we'll be able to really talk about some stuff there, but really worth keeping in mind if that's
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we concluded your submission?
Well, more to offer in the exempt session.
Okay, we will. Now, members, bear in mind that they are green papers. So anything that you've heard now that you wish to raise that is not in green paper, this is your chance to ask the question. Yeah. Councillor Hudson, then the Parkway.
I've got a question, about the comment you made about Juniper implementations. I think I'm a very old person, but within company law, there's something they call listing the fair information, where if there are certain legal cases where this legal problem and say, in fact, it's the holding company that's really in control, or the directors that are really in control. So I'm just raising the issue that while you may say it is a separate company and you believe it's completely ring-fenced, have you taken appropriate legal advice about lifting the veil of incorporation? That is number one. Number two, if you go onto the company's house website, and it's about individuals or organisations with significant control over the company, when you look at Juniper Ventures, it says that organisations, I want to be absolutely clear and just read it out to you. Right, the organisation or the individual with significant personal interest, the mayor and burgesses of the London Borough of Newham. So I'm just questioning, you're saying it's all completely ring-fenced. I'm just questioning that maybe that's not quite the case.
I think perhaps later on, closed session can deal with the first point and in relation to equal pay claims and how equal pay claims can be made and defended. That's probably that conversation, and perhaps Mont has a second point.
Yeah, I think if we can deal with that in the closed session, there is some information in the exempt appendices where the legal advice has been sought as to associated figures, and that will cover the point.
Yeah. Darling?
I just have a question of clarification, if that's okay, Chair. Sarah, you just earlier on when you was giving your remarks, you stated something, and I just wanted to clarify if I heard right. You said the current position was agreed by all three unions and workforce. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure I heard that right.
Right. Okay. If that comes to charter.
Councillor Wilson and Ruiz, you said that in September you became aware of this situation. Can I just establish, has Juniper always been in your portfolios?
Well, it's part of my portfolio by the very fact that it provides school meals education, but the actual responsibility lies within adult health and social care.
Because it's deemed that the provision of food and
Yeah.
So
I'm only here because I've got education.
Yeah. The food strategy resides within the health.
Yeah.
It's under the food strategy.
Yeah.
It comes under
Me.
public health?
Yep.
Yeah.
It doesn't come under inclusive economy.
No.
Public health.
Thank you.
Councillor Lee Parker.
Thank you. Just following from my colleague's question. So just in regards to what's just been said, I guess the question I have is which member of the executive cabinet sits on the shareholders board?
Neither of them.
No, sorry to jump in.
You may answer.
Exempt session, no, the way we structure and organise it, so I fulfil a role known as representative of the shareholder, and we go out of our way to make sure, so for example, I wouldn't attend. I think for exactly some of the reasons that are discussed here. Actually, the way this process is handled is very careful. You've given me the thing that I'm already going to interesting territory we shouldn't be sharing. We do this very carefully to make sure that's not the case, and it would absolutely be inappropriate.
I don't quite understand. The member asks if any member sits on the board.
Yes, and not a trust this is a company, and so the way that's structured is.
Sorry, in the shareholder board, no members sit on the shareholder.
Right.
Chair's got his hand up.
Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, who is the lead member responsible for Juniper? I'm unclear by the answer given. Who is actually the lead member responsible for Juniper? Who carries responsibility?
Probably you.
Yeah, it's probably me, but there's a joint responsibility, like we're dealing with one council. To take a parallel, I'm the person who signs off a cabinet report on domestic violence, for instance, but that's shared by 3 cabinet leads. Yeah. So it's a bit of a.
Okay.
Only one person could. So
can I ask the question again?
Yes.
No. Can I ask the question again? And maybe who is the person?
Neil.
I'll say me if it's.
No, Councillor Neil Wilson. It sits within his portfolio.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So, Councillor Neil Wilson, you are the lead member who took the decisions. Is that correct? Because Councillor Neil Wilson is the lead member responsible for this decision.
No, this was a chief officer decision.
I can't hear that, Chair.
It was an officer key decision, Councillor Paul. So
okay.
Sure. According to the papers.
So who is the cabinet? Right. So the council.
There's
a delay.
Okay. According to the papers, the mayor.
Yeah, I'll turn my camera off, Chair.
Wilson and yeah. Are you okay, Terry?
Yes. He's turning it off because it's buffering.
Yeah, I'm listening, Chair.
Okay, so 4 cabinet members, or the mayor and 3 cabinet members, were consulted according to the papers. So that's Sophie, Neil, and Sarah, and the mayor.
Okay, Chair. Right, Chair. Can I ask a question, Chair, with regards to governance? There's 4. You just given me 4 cabinet members who each have a piece of this subject. I want to know who is the responsible cabinet member, and maybe perhaps an officer can tell me who is the main cabinet member responsible.
I will repeat the answer given by my colleague. It is myself.
So Neil says it's him. So
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Okay, and can I just ask a following question on the? Okay, thank you. And there's a question was asked about the shareholder board, or normally called the local authority trading company board. Can someone tell me, is there any cabinet members who go along to that meeting?
No.
Good.
Did you hear that, Terry?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other question in this session, I would move.
We can answer Councillor Wilson's question about the earlier cabinet paper from 2020.
Councillor Paul's question.
Councillor Paul's question, sorry, about the earlier cabinet paper. That would be a strange turn of events, wouldn't it? Councillor Paul's question. Section 6 of that paper talks specifically about the year-end negative position created by COVID and the headwinds and the specific need actually to take this action in order for the company to have financial reserves to be able to operate and to continue. It's really clear that COVID was an unbelievably tough time for the sector. It talks about that position then and the challenges they were in. See, the paper lays out how well they've done to survive this and how only 5 local authority catering companies were still standing. And then section 6 of the paper outlines the significantly negative financial position that created, but also the context. Section 5 of that paper talks all about that context. And in essence, the remarkable thing that 32 London boroughs, Newham was one of only 5 standing.
Yeah,
as of now.
Yeah.
But that was, sorry, the last of those questions that we can probably talk about in public, because it's all in public.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair,
Terry?
Chair, I have a supplementary to that answer, Chair. Yeah. What you haven't mentioned, and can you just tell me, before 2022, there was Juniper Pursuits and Juniper Ventures. Juniper Ventures traded within the borough. Juniper Pursuits traded outside the borough. Juniper Pursuits often tendered at below the London living wage. Since 2022, was any instruction politically or officers given to Juniper to stop that arrangement, thereby Juniper Pursuits and Ventures had to tender a London living wage?
As far as I'm aware, so I only picked up responsibility for the shareholder in 2022. As far as I'm aware, I've got no record of them ever tendering below London living wage. And I've got on the record from when you were Director of Resources a very clear instruction that they were never to do so. And as far as I'm aware, from every record, every board paper, everything I've ever seen, they have never tendered it below London living wage or without LGPS. There was a dialogue about whether we as the shareholder wanted them to do so, but we were clear and they absolutely
Chair,
jumped to it. Yeah.
Terry, just wait for Andy to finish. Are you finished, Andy?
Yeah, there's absolutely no record.
Yeah, Terry, go on. Yes.
Chair, I like to challenge the version given. As for member of the record, I was the lead member for finance up until 2022. I'm quite clear in my time, Juniper Pursuits outside of Newham tendered at below the London living wage. Now they're tendering at the London living wage. Therefore, an instruction must have been given to instruct Juniper Pursuits to increase the price at which they tender. And if you can't answer the question in complete confidence, maybe other officers around you can add to your answer.
I can say there's definitely been no instruction since 2022 to change course. The last thing on the record is a letter in 2019 that came from Cabinet, as it would have been then, and it was signed off on the director by Resources and yourself as lead member. That's the last thing on the record. Like, I'm happy to dig back into that for a written confirmation, but there's nothing in my time.
No, hold on. Okay. Chair.
Yes, you may go ahead.
Can I just say, there's the implication what I did in the previous role. Right. Therefore, I'm going to say, and I have the emails to prove, right, I was against the decision to instruct Juniper Pursuits to increase their price of tendering, because at the time I said this would happen. I'm willing, Chair, to offer all my emails for an internal investigation, because I don't think the information given is being correct. So you made an assertion, Andy, what I did. I'm telling you what I did, and I'm telling you my recollection is completely different to yours, and I'm willing to offer via the chair all my emails, and you check my emails because I've checked it. Something happened when I left the post, which increased the price of tendering for Juniper, which has led to this situation.
Okay, Terry, your point is well noted, and your promise to share your email to resolve this matter in the next session. Conrad.
No, what I was going to say, Chair, is we can resolve that outside if necessary.
Yes.
I mean, clearly there is different recollection. Like absolutely no comment on that. Of course, all they have possibly in each case. If there's documents that demonstrate to the contrary, then of course that we correct on that. That is not a problem at all. The relevant point, surely though, for the current situation, if there is any question that from 2022 the position has been as described by everyone that that has been tendering on LGPX.
Okay, thank you very much. For the remainder of the meeting, I'm going to propose that we move into closed session. The reason for that is there are a lot of sensitive information contained in green paper. They are commercially sensitive, and therefore not to put Juniper at commercial risk. It is only sensible that we exclude the press and public. Therefore, I move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the following item, which is this item that we're discussing, of the business, to the extent that exempt information, as described in Part 1 of Schedule 12A, the Local Government Act 1972, is likely to be. Yeah. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Bear with me.
Is it just you and I, Terry, or? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yakka by Senate Road.
Don't know that in case it goes to the other one, that's already.
Sorry, that's